What's up, everybody? My name is Alec. I've been wholesaling for over 3 years now. It's crazy, time flies. I remember when I first started, like it was a week ago. I've done over 50 deals during this period of time. I've scaled my business to have employees. I've scaled a bunch of different marketing channels from cold calling, texting, PPC, SEO, direct mail, everything. I've tried anything and everything. I've done deals all throughout Florida. I've done virtual deals. I've done deals in other states. I've done creative finance deals, Airbnbs, blah, 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 blah. All credibility, not trying to brag. But 3 years ago, almost exactly. So 3 years ago, in actually 3 weeks, I did my first deal. And I posted a short about it like a year and change ago. And I didn't even realize it, but that short right now has over 100,000 views. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know it had that. So I don't know how YouTube algorithm works, where it just like pushes out year-old videos, because I feel like that's like recent views, but I don't know. And it seems like a lot of people are interested in this topic. And I got a whole bunch of comments of people asking me like how I did it and stuff like that. So I'm going to get into like a Q&A and answer like the most common questions at the end of this video. But I want to kind of go over the deal because it is a 40-second, 30-second video, and it's kind of like boom, 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 boom. And it's not like I can't explain how the deal went. So hopefully in this 8 to 10 minute video, because sometimes I ramble and I don't want to ramble, I can explain it a little bit more in depth. So if you are looking for your first deal or your next deal, maybe you can see what I did and, improve on what I did, or, use it as motivation to get your first deal. So I actually signed the contract for that house on 12/31/2020. It closed on, end of January. So what's funny is that was actually my second contract. So my second contract was my closed deal. My first contract was actually a fourplex, a quadplex in a different area, South Florida. It was a fourplex. I had it under contract for $400K, so $100,000 a door. And if you know anything about the real estate market now, you really can't find anything for $100,000 a door, but back then it was more common. So I had a fourplex under contract in November of 2020, so a month before I got this deal, and I actually canceled that deal. I couldn't sell it. I made some mistakes during that deal where I wasn't really willing to work with people. I was trying to do it on my own, whatever, I was a little impatient. I think I could have sold it if I waited a little bit, but that's a different story, maybe a different video. But I canceled that deal. Fun fact about that deal is that house that I had for 400 and couldn't sell, even for like 410, I couldn't sell it. It's worth 900 now. I just pulled up the Zillow because I was curious. $900,000. So that's how much the market has increased, over double in 3 years. But my first deal, I cold called. So when I first got started in real estate, I was cold calling. I was living with my mom. I was unemployed at the time. I was 24 years old. I'm 27 now. I was living in her second bedroom. I was cold calling out of a closet, and I just did that for 8-9 hours a day. I really had like a good hustle back then. Now I don't really have it as much, I feel like, but back then I did. And I would just cold call all day. I would watch movies and play games and stuff while I was doing it, so it wasn't like super stressful and awful, but I just cold called all day. And one of the people I cold called was interested in selling their house in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I went to the house and, talked to her. She seemed interested. We spoke on the phone for a few weeks before that, getting rapport and credibility and stuff like that. And I went to the house and she wanted like $250,000 for the house. And I didn't really know numbers that well. I think I had the ARV at like 300, so I'm like, 250 seems a little bit high. So I offered her like 220, and she ended up, kind of meeting in the middle at 235. So at that point, after I got like a confirmation that the price was a low negotiable, I went to the house. This was my second time going to a house. And at this point, I still didn't know anything about real estate. I barely knew what a mortgage was. I barely knew anything about foundation or roofs or anything. Like, I was so green. I just stumbled my way through. Even now, I don't know everything, but back then I didn't know anything. And I went to the house, had no idea what I was looking at. I remember she showed me the AC and I was like looking at it, like reading the paper on the AC, and I had no idea what I was reading. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. I see this model. Like, I had no idea. And I remember like knocking on the wood, like in the house, like trying to like act like I knew what I was doing. I had no idea. It's funny. I also, because I felt young back then, I still look young. Like, I'm 27. People say I look like I'm like 22, 23. When I was 24, I looked like I was 2019, And I felt a little insecure about that. And if you're a younger person, I completely feel you. And what I did to increase my credibility, and what I suggest maybe you do if you're younger, is I made up like a fake partner. So I said, my dad is my partner. My dad is like this hidden partner that has me do everything, and he's kind of behind the scenes. And that worked because she's like, oh, does your dad like the deal? I'm like, yeah, he was interested. And it's really just me, but I kind of said that. It's just further credibility, and it's like, I don't know everything, and my dad is like the boss man, and I'm just this kid. So I ended up going to the house, saw the house, brought a contract, got her to sign it right there. And I was actually my second close. I closed the other deal I had under contract, so that was my second close. Got it under contract for $235, and I'm like, man, I think I can sell this. So I ended up calling all the buyers I met. So I went to a lot of real estate events. I still go to a lot of real estate meetups. I had like a list of buyers, and I just cold called all the buyers. I'm like, hey, this is Alec. We met at this blank event. Wanted to see if you're interested in this house. Called everybody, and I also sent it to a bunch of wholesalers that had buyers. And that was the one mistake I made on my first contract, was I wasn't willing to work with other wholesalers. So wholesalers have buyers, and sometimes it's worth it to JV, which is joint venture, which is essentially partner with somebody on the deal and have them bring the buyer, you bring the deal, and then you split the deal. And it's a win-win on both sides, because maybe you wouldn't have found a buyer and they found the buyer. Yeah, it's a win-win on both sides. So that was one thing I didn't do on my first contract that I learned my lesson and did on my second contract. So somebody else brought the buyer. I had a showing, and I had like 5 buyers come out, and the buyers walked around the house. And then right when we were leaving, all the buyers left. The seller was like about to leave. I had one more person come to the house, and he came late. I'm like, bro, why are you coming so late? Like an hour late? And then I'm like, all right, fine, you can see it. So he goes in, sees the house, and then that's the end of the showing. Everybody leaves, and I'm like, all right, crossing my fingers, hopefully somebody buys this. Which is funny looking back at it. A lot of people back then were like, Alec, this is overpriced. This isn't a good deal. This is a bad deal. This area is not safe. This isn't a good area. I had so many people telling me no. I probably spoke to 100 buyers on the phone, and 95 of them, 94 of them, 96 of them, whatever, told me no, because I only had like 3 buyers come out. Maybe 97 of them told me no in that example. And nobody wanted this house. Like, I didn't think it was that good of a deal, actually. I was like kind of leaning towards canceling it at one point. And now that house that I had for $235 3 years ago is worth almost $600,000 now. And that area is one of the better parts of Fort Lauderdale. So it completely changed, where that area was a little bit more unsafe. Now that area is really safe, a good area, up and coming area, and that house is worth almost $600,000, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? And people were telling me back then it's not a good deal. So it just shows you, somebody tells you it's not a good deal, forget them, go to the next person, because somebody sees the deal and can, see how much money they can make on the deal and see the vision of it. So all the buyers told me no. And then that one buyer that came late, he actually offered us $235 for the house. And then it was another wholesaler's buyer. If you do deals in South Florida, Jim, shout out to Jim. He brought the buyer to the deal, and I told Jim, I'm like, hey, I have it under contract for $235. Can you do $240? Jim says, let me ask. And then Jim says yes. So I'm like at TJ Maxx, and like I get confirmation that I did my first deal. I found my first buyer. I'm like, yo, let's go. Like, this is amazing. So I'm hyped. Send the assignment to Jim's buyer. He signs it, sends the deposit to the title company, and then Jim and I decide to split it 50-50. So there's our purchase price is $235, and then the buyer's buying it for $240. So there's a $5,000 difference there, and then that $5,000 gets split 50-50. Jim gets $2,500, I get $2,500. After that, about 30 days later, everything goes super smooth. He has an inspection, he did an appraisal, everything goes smooth. Seller was cool, buyer was cool. Luckily, I had no issues, because like recently I've had some crazy issues on deals during like the closing process. This one I had no issues. 30 days later, it closed, and I got a check for $2,500 deposited in my account, and showed my mom. I'm like, this is real. Because at this point, it's been 3 months. that I was cold calling all day and I didn't make any money, and my mom was like, hey, I think it's time for you to get a job. You know, I remember one time she pulled me over in the kitchen and she's like, I don't think this is working. Like, I think you need to do something else. And I'm like, no, it's gonna work, Mom, trust me. 3 months later, I got that check for $2,500, and then about a month later, I closed another deal, and then kind of just kept going. And you know, now I've done over 50 deals 3 years later, and you know, bought houses, sold houses, you know, made money, lost money, learned a lot of lessons, made a lot of connections, and have grown a lot during this process. And what's funny is if you watch my videos, you'll see this thing right here. This is actually my first deal, and actually my mom framed it, but you could see right there, 2,500. Hopefully you could see that. This was my first deal. Highly recommend keep your first deal check, man. This is dusty. I haven't picked this up in a while. If you look at on the date on the check, it actually closed on 1/21/21. So I got it under contract 12/31, and under a month later it closed on 1/21. One thing that's interesting is the buyer that bought it for 240, he actually ended up flipping it. So he fixed it up and flipped it, and he made like 30-40K in the flip. So that was pretty cool, seeing somebody actually make money flipping the house, because after so many people rejected me, you know, anybody could have made that money realistically, but nobody wanted to do the deal. This guy did the deal. He saw the market opportunity, but maybe he should have held it, because if he held it, the house was worth over 600K now, and he sold it for, you know, 330 and bought it from me for 240. But yeah, that's the story about how I did my first deal. It ended up, you know, working out really well. I'm actually going to open up the video and go through some of like the most common questions people had. So this guy PXH says, cool story, bro. More importantly, why don't you show others how you got the deal? You're leaving details out, man. Well, hopefully this video helped you, PXH, and hopefully it went into more detail. Okay, this person, Joseph Rodriguez, says, wait another year, it'll be worth 150. Well, that was a year ago, and now it's worth 600. So I don't think he saw the market crash he was expecting. Okay, this guy says, stuff I liked 1815. To get it under a contract, do you need to have the funds or loan to purchase? No, so I wholesaled the house and I assigned the contract. So I never actually bought the house, I assigned the contract. The end buyer was the one that used their funds. If I closed on it, yes, I would need the funds. But since I never closed on it, I just assigned the rights to purchase it. I did not. This person, Mr. Omega Roblox Icon, says, what website icon that shows the percentages, not the Zestimate, but the first two screenshots? I think he's talking about maybe PropStream or Batch, which I still use 3 years later to this day. If you're looking to start using PropStream and Batch, check out the description below. I have affiliate links. I highly appreciate it if you use those links. E.T. Mayer says, where are the buyers? I'm so confused. Yeah, I kind of covered that in this video now, but the buyers are all over. If you look in the right places, you'll see the buyers. They're there. They want to buy. You know, go to meetups, go in Facebook groups. There's plenty of buyers. Network with other wholesalers that have buyers, because the buyers are there and they're hungry, but there's not a lot of deals. Okay, I'm going to answer 2 questions here. The first one is, how long did it take you to close it? About 30 days from contract. Kind of went over that in this video. Maybe it took me a few weeks to get it under contract, so maybe the whole thing 45 days. And the second question is, how much did you put in earnest money to the title company? I honestly don't remember, probably $1,000, which I did send to the title company, but I don't remember exactly how much I put. Okay, and then the last question I'm gonna answer is this one. How much was your title fees? By Thenner Kropas. I said that so wrong, I apologize. How much was your title fees? And the answer is 0, because I didn't close on the house. And what title fees are is the title company or closing attorney, when they facilitate the transaction and close it, they do have fees related to that closing. And since I wasn't the one closing on it, the buyer paid those. I usually budget around 2 to 3% of the purchase price in closing fees, which includes title fees. So hopefully that helps. But as a wholesaler, if you're signing the contract and not closing on it, you shouldn't be paying title fees unless you have some arrangement with the buyer or the seller to do so. Okay, I'm actually gonna answer 2 more questions because I just scrolled by these 2 questions. This guy says, what CRM do you use? I use a CRM called InvestorFuse. I've been using it for 3 years since I started. I have a link in my description to use it. That's an affiliate link. That's the best CRM. And then the second question is 400K for that house. That house is not worth but 100K. the land value went up that much, and yes, it did. It's crazy because, you know, 10 years ago that house was worth 100K, but now it's worth 600K, and that just shows you how crazy the real estate market is, but the South Florida real estate market is, because it's went crazy. But yeah, that's all we're gonna talk about in this video. So I appreciate you for watching. Hope this helped. Hope you get your first deal. Hope you get your next deal. If you have any questions, drop them below. I'll make videos on those. I answer pretty much all the comments. I try to take pride in that. Sometimes I fall behind, but usually I'm pretty on par with answering comments. So like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.